Good morning, everyone. Thoughts from the car today on this Tuesday. Something that has been coming up a lot in my conversations with clients and friends and just, in general, seems to be this problem with procrastination and time management. As someone who is very meticulous about my time, how I spend my time, and building a business, having a job, being a mom, having to run a household for many years, time management has become something that was absolutely necessary in order for me to survive. And so I want to talk about it today, about procrastination, why it's not good, and how to overcome it. How we overcome procrastination with better time management. I guess that's probably a better way to say it. So first of all, what is procrastination? Procrastination is actually pretty common. And I suffer from it too, to be completely honest with you, on certain tasks I don't want to do or things that are uncomfortable, etc. It's delaying tasks or activities, even though you know that by delaying that thing, it's going to cause negative consequences. Whether that negative consequence is you don't do something on time, you're going to miss a deadline, or you have to rush in order to do something. You just know that it's going to cause there's going to be a negative outcome because of your delay. That is what procrastination is. So, and there's going to be consequences for that action, but we do it anyway. And oftentimes this is most often it's because of poor time management. And we'll get into the different kinds of time management, but there are other reasons why we procrastinate. And one of the big ones is the fear of failure. People who are afraid to fail are afraid of not meeting expectations and making mistakes. This oftentimes is why people will procrastinate a task or an activity, especially if something that's very important to them, or if they felt like they are either loved more or less based on their performance of something. And so they don't want to fail at the task. So they just push it off and push it off and push it off. And oftentimes that can lead to disaster. So fear of failure is a big one. The next one I would say is perfectionism, which kind of goes along with the mistakes when we don't want to do something because it has to be perfect and we know that we're not going to do it perfect. And so it's an avoidance technique. You avoid doing the task or the activity because it won't be done perfectly. And again, it's tied to your own self-worth and value, or the perception of way you are seen by others, or you believe how you'll be loved or accepted or supported by others. So fear of failure and perfectionism kind of go together oftentimes. The next one I would say is a lack of motivation. So this is one that is oftentimes a reason why people procrastinate, is because the task is boring, the task is difficult, or an unpleasant task that you don't want to do, and so you're pushing it off. So there's a lack of motivation there of actually wanting to do the task because you don't want to do it. It's not something that you enjoy or like, or so there's that lack of motivation. And I think something goes along with this is if the task brings stress and or anxiety, it sometimes will make it harder to focus on the task and concentrate to be able to finish the task in an efficient manner. So you know that it's going to take you a long time, and so it becomes unpleasant. And especially if the task is something that's very stressful to you, then it's something you're not going to want to do. Or if you're just in a season of stress and anxiety, it can be very overwhelming and difficult to focus on the task that you need to do. So you just put it off. And then the big one, like I said, is the lack of time management. And this one, it's difficulty in prioritizing what actually needs to be done when, and allocating the right amount of time to finish a task by its deadline. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, is time management, overcoming bad time management, because there are several techniques and different things that we can do to improve our time management. And that's kind of what I've been hearing a lot of recently from a lot of people, of why they're procrastinating is because they don't have the time management skills that they need. So here are a few ways to overcome it. First of all, I think the thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a mindset shift. So here are some mindset shift ways to shift your mindset rather, in order to overcome procrastination. I think the first one is, and I've talked about this a lot, is large tasks or large goals or large things that you're doing that need to be done, activities, breaking them down into smaller tasks makes them less intimidating, so that our reasons for failure or perfectionism or overwhelm can be cut. And then we are able to better manage our time by prioritizing what actually has to be done in smaller amounts, so that you're not having to prioritize what you need to get done for a larger task. Just breaking it down into smaller bits just makes it easier overall. I think another thing, and this kind of ties with perfectionism and the fear of failure, is setting more realistic goals for yourself. So again, breaking things down smaller, going step by step, not having these big ostentatious goals for yourself. I mean, and that's good. Dream big. As a bold living coach, I'm going to tell you, you got to think big. You got to have that vision. And that's good. But I think sometimes we have to set more realistic goals for ourselves to meet that big, hairy dream that we have for ourselves. But be realistic. Don't say, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to make $1 million in 6 months. that's not necessarily realistic for all of us. And so I think it's better to have a more realistic goal of I'm going to build my business and I'm going to make my first sale in 6 months is probably a more realistic goal for most people. So just set realistic goals for yourself, and that's going to look different for everybody. I'm not telling everybody they can't make $1 million in 6 months. There are some people who can, but have a more realistic goal for yourself, which means you have to know yourself. You have to be self-aware. And then I think something that goes along with that is having positive affirmation, like having positive self-affirmation and speaking positively over yourself. And that goes along with, the gratitude practices that I talk about and living abundantly, leaning into abundance rather than lack, and just being an overall positive person and dispelling negative thoughts, which we've talked a lot about in the last couple of weeks. Just affirming yourself builds confidence. And when you have more confidence, you're better able to meet your realistic goals and break down larger things into smaller things. And then I think another thing that is really a mindset shift for us is rewarding ourselves. So often we think, I have to do this and there's no reward, and we're just doing the thing because we need to get it done, or it has, it's something that, like, why am I rewarding myself for this? But I think that this goes along with like breaking things down into smaller bits, having more realistic goals for ourselves, speaking more positively is rewarding ourselves. We should reward and celebrate when we hit certain milestones or tasks in whatever we're doing. And this can be for like students. I tell my students this, there should be a reward for meeting a goal or breaking something down, and not procrastinating something and just doing the thing. And I've talked about different techniques of how I've done this, but you can do like a small reward for yourself when you've hit the goal, when you've done the task. Something that I do a lot of times is I have this rule of 3, like this 3-second rule or 5-second rule. I guess it really is a 5-second rule. I rarely use 3, 5 to 10 seconds, depending on the task, is I just count down from 5 or count down 3 or count down from 10. And then I just literally get up and go do the task. And that really helps me, to not procrastinate as much. So as soon as the thing comes to my mind, like, I need to put my shoes away, I just count down from 5 and I get up and I put my shoes away. That really helps me. It's just a rule that I kind of have for myself, and I don't like to break the rule. So, because I know the consequences of breaking the rule. And so it just helps me. It's just like an easy technique to help me not procrastinate on simple tasks that just need to get done. But it's a mindset shift and then, I like reward myself for getting the shoes away. So, then I get to go do something that I want to do, read a book or talk to someone or get on social media or, whatever that task is for. The reward is for the task. And I think that that's something that also helps us to kind of get that mindset shift over, and also with our time management in general, is the environmental factors that are around us. So a big thing is making your workspace conducive to being able to focus. And so a big thing is being organized and having a clean space. So if your workspace is completely littered and just completely disorganized, you're going to have a more difficult time focusing on the task that you need to get done. And you're not going to want to do the work. You're going to be distracted. There's going to be things all around you. Your space is just not going to be clean. You're going to have difficulty finding the things that maybe you need in order to finish a task. So making sure that your workspace is clean and organized is a huge time management skill, and makes it better able for us to be able to finish our tasks and not procrastinate them, because we're not like, what's this thing that I have in front of me that is distracting me, or cleaning your desk. If your workspace is a desk, like you're trying to do a task and you end up cleaning your desk because it's not organized, and you're not maintaining the organization and cleanliness of it. It's more difficult to find things. So just keeping clean and organized, I think, is an easy way in order to have better time management. Another thing is minimizing all your distractions. So again, having the clean space, but I'm talking about distractions of our phone. I was trying to look for my phone. I'm on my phone. Anyway, the distraction of our phones is such a big thing. So, putting it on do not disturb, so you're not getting phone calls and text messages when you're working on a task or working on a project of some sort, is going to be paramount to being able to finish the task that you have for yourself. So minimizing those distractions, whatever it may be, turning the phone off, do not disturb, whatever it is, notifications turned off. And then I think another big thing is having accountability. That's an environmental factor. Keeping yourself accountable, having someone around you or a team of people around you to say, hey, have you done the thing that you need to do? Telling someone, hey, I need to finish this task. I need to finish this project by the end of the day today. Will you check in with me and make sure that I've actually done the thing that I said that I'm going to do? Is something that's awesome. It's, as a coach, that's like my job, is to have that accountability and to tell someone and ask someone, hey, have you been doing the thing that you need to do? And motivating them and challenging them and pushing them in an appropriate way for whatever their goals and dreams are. So we have to have that mindset shift, and there are just some environmental things and some mind tricks that we can do to shift. So now the time management techniques. There are some time management techniques that are super helpful. I think when we're looking at time management techniques, one of the first things we need to do is we need to figure out what is the underlying issue of why I'm not doing the thing. And so identifying our triggers is super helpful so that we can know, like, if it's an environmental shift or mindset shift, or if it really is time management that we actually need. We need to learn the skill, and seeking support for that. Again, getting a coach is super helpful for these things. So the time management techniques. Okay, the first one is time blocking. So time blocking is where we allocate specific blocks of time, like an hour, 2 hours, whatever we think it's going to take to do a certain task in order to finish the activity and be focused without, having any unnecessary multitasking during a certain amount of time. So time blocking and saying during this hour, I'm going to read all my emails and I'm going to finish them. Okay. And I'm not going to do anything else during that hour, which is why minimizing our distractions is really good during that time block. Time blocking can be very useful when we have a similar routine every day and we can just block that time and say, I'm doing this task during this time, this task during this time, this task during this time. And that's for like a routine that is like every day, like your everyday routine for time blocking. The next technique is called the Pomodoro technique. Now, this technique is where you focus like 25-minute increments. Very specifically, it's 25 minutes in an interval, and then you take a short break. So for 25 minutes, you're going to do the task, and then you take a 5-minute break. We use this technique a lot in schools, especially in elementary schools with students, because it's statistically and psychologically, our brains are really, especially during the elementary developmental age, is we can only focus on a task for about 25 minutes before our brain gets fatigued and bored, and we no longer will take in information and no longer will be able to output the same level of work after 25 minutes. And this is true for younger students, but it's also true for adults. That 25 minutes seems to be about the attention span we can give for doing one task. And this actually will boost our productivity and it prevents burnout, which is great. I have been in burnout and it's not a fun thing. And when we are doing the same task over and over and over for hours at a time, we can completely burn out and we don't ever want to do it again. So the Pomodoro technique of doing the 25-minute interval of focused work and then taking a 5-minute break absolutely will boost your productivity, not just if you're a student, but also as an adult if you have like a large activity and you're not really wanting to do it and you want to stay more motivated. The next technique is called the Eisenhower matrix. And so this is where you categorize your tasks based on the urgency and importance of the task needing to be done. It helps us prioritize our tasks when we have a lot of things that we have to do. This technique is really great when there's a lot of overwhelm and everything feels urgent and you don't know where to start on something. Actually listing things out and saying, all right, this is the most important. This is the thing that I need to get done. It's the most urgent and the most important. It has like a deadline that you need to get things done. It helps us to be able to prioritize our time a little bit better rather than flitting from one project to another, and over multitasking and not actually finishing anything. If you're someone who, this is really good for like those with ADHD, because that's what happens a lot of times is you start a task and then you don't finish it. So this is really good at prioritizing the tasks with the most important, with the most urgent, and then just, you can kind of, what's the word I want to say? Like you kind of can like layer these techniques. So for someone with like ADHD, starting with the Eisenhower by urgency and importance, and then using the Pomodoro technique of the 25-minute intervals focus time is a great way to combine these techniques and make it work for you. And then I think the last one that is probably the most used and that can be very that can translate and you can kind of stack with others is eating the frog is what the technique is called. And this is where you tackle the most challenging thing that you have and you do that in the morning. So whatever your most challenging thing is, and this is really good for those who are like morning people, to do your most challenging task in the morning. And that will give you kind of like a sense of accomplishment for the day. And it kind of makes your day, the rest of the day, feel a little bit easier. Okay. So there are also some really great time management tools. And I want to go through these super quick because I'm running out of time, but, digital calendars are great. Google Calendar. I use Google because I can send notifications to myself and it'll say, hey, you got to do this task. That is something that's super helpful. So digital calendars can help with your time management. There are actual task management apps out there, such as like Trello. I think it's all called Asana and Todoist, T-O-D-I-S-T, Todoist, like a to-do list. And that helps you kind of like organize your things. And it's great for like team management. And it helps you like prioritize your tasks based on time and deadlines. The next thing is like a time tracking app. This is really great for those who can kind of get lost in what they're doing. This is really good to learn how you spend your time. I love paper and pencil. Don't get me wrong, paper and pencil is great because it actually makes you go and like write things down. One of my friends is actually doing that, where he's intervaling all of his times by 15 minutes, writing down what he's doing so that then he can go back and see where he's spending his time and his energy, what is adding to his energy, what is spending his energy, what is making him money, what is making him spend money or not making him any money. This is a great way. Paper and pencil is awesome. But there are some cool apps. I think it's called, I can't think of the name of it. I think the one is Clockify. I know that one. Clockify is a good one, but I think paper and pencil is awesome because there's something about actually having to write down what you've done and see it in black and white that makes you really realize how you're spending your time. Note apps are great for like Evernote, is awesome. Keep Notes is awesome in Google and it's free because then you can write down your ideas and you can write down task lists and like check them off as you're doing them. And then there are some productivity apps called like Forest and Freedom. And these are really good. That helps blocking all the distractions. So if you have a hard time with shutting your phone off or setting your do not disturb on, this app is great because it blocks all those things and will not allow you to get distracted. And I think the most important thing when you're dealing with procrastination and time management is finding what works for you. What is going to work for you? And it might be a combination of some of these things that is going to be the best technique for you. So here's my question and challenge for you today is, where are you procrastinating and what is the trigger? I think that's the biggest thing, is figuring out what is the trigger for your procrastination. Is it actually time management, or is it your fear of failure or your desire for perfectionism? What is your trigger? Identify your trigger of what it is that makes you procrastinate. And that thing that you're procrastinating today, go do it. Just go do it. Use my 10-second or 5-second technique and go and do it. Count down from 5 and go do the thing today right now.